Some people have their own approach, but my approach is to be there for people's moments.
Yeah.
So it's how it started.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, and it illustrates perfectly what I was saying earlier at the very top of the interview, why I love talking to musicians, because without exception, I mean, different genres and different ways of doing the communication, but without exception, musicians have this fascinating, at least to me, and I hope also to the listeners, fascinating outlook on communication. And for me, when you tell that story, that's exactly what you're doing. You're communicating with your audience. You know, you said it yourself. The music's not about you. It's about the people's stories who are touched and who are affected by the music. So we wish you all the success in the world with the Rainbow Bridge story. Is it a relatively new endeavor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, after the interview, it was in October.
Right. So
and we started
what
it.
are we talking, 6 months or so, roughly?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the first step is a greeting card, because greeting card is always in middle of something important. I mean, it's when you celebrate a moment, usually offer a greeting card.
Well, it's got those two things, doesn't it? It's got the moment, as you say, and it's got the giving and the sharing. Because you don't usually buy a greeting card for yourself. You buy it to give
and you
on.
share
So,
it.
It makes perfect sense. And so certainly next time we have you back on the program, maybe when you're down in Jeju, we can hear the latest updates on how that project is going.
With big pleasure.
Now, I'd like to come back and maybe start to talk about you yourself a little bit. Again, in preparation for our discussion today, I visited your website, of course, and one of the first things I noticed was that it was in 6 languages, one of them being Korean. So if our listeners want to find your website, it is in Korean. And then the other thing I noticed was that it described you as an artist, obviously, an entertainer, obviously, but also a philosopher and an ambassador. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about maybe those two latter terms, philosopher and ambassador. We'll start with ambassador. Why does your website describe you as an ambassador?
Well, because I have been appointed as UNICEF ambassador back to 2007.
Okay.
And it really changed my life and our life, because my wife and I were appointed.
Right. And from what I've understood rather, it's the first time for a couple to receive this very prestigious recognition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
First time in history of UNICEF. So, yes, the ambassador side is involved with UNICEF and trying to make a difference, raise awareness for the largest organization in the world for protecting children and helping them to have a decent life.
Yeah. And I'm noticing on your lapel, there's a pin. Is that perhaps a UNICEF pin?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's the United Nations and Mother and Child.
Fantastic. Yeah. Can you've been involved then as a UNICEF ambassador since 2007? Obviously touring, you're a very busy person. Can you give us just maybe a little taste of some of the things you've done as UNICEF ambassador since 2007?
Of course. The role is to witness moments and situations and share it with people in different countries. For example, I've been to India, I've been to Ukraine. Right now we talk a lot about
Ukraine. Yeah, sure, it's in the news a lot.
And I've been to several countries in Lebanon, my country of origin, because Barakat is originally from Lebanon.
I see.
And actually witness situations, and after that, share it with people, for example, in Canada, because we have a committee in Canada, UNICEF Canada, and inspire people to give more and to know why they should give also.
Yeah,
we
it's a big part of it.
We do the bridge as ambassador, and also to raise awareness, because every day we have a chance to communicate, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
So we try during our communication events and time to share the reality of children of the world.
Well, it's important work, and I think obviously in 2007, when you and your wife, who, if I could be so bold, I'd like to point out to the listeners, your wife is an Olympic medalist in gymnastics.
Exactly.
I think you were chosen as very much the perfect person for that, because it is about communication, it is about raising awareness, and it is also about getting people to understand why there's a need. And I think obviously you are the right person to do that. I'd like to talk about some of the other things you've done, maybe not directly as the UNICEF ambassador, but some of the other agencies you've been involved with. I understand you've also been involved with Amnesty International, with a project known as Make Some Noise.
Exactly.
Seems appropriate for a musician.
Yes, it was actually a music project created by Yoko Ono.
Oh, interesting.
And the concept was to do a new version of John Lennon's repertoire. We did it. I did it with a singer from Canada called Audrey de Montigny.
Okay.
And we had a great time in studio. And then we released several versions from several bands all over the world.
Yeah.
So it was a great project.
Which song in particular did you do? Do you recall? Or did you do several?
I did one.
Did one.
I think it's called... I don't remember.
No.
Sorry.
Well, no, again, with musicians, it's often about the music itself and not so much the title of the music.
Actually. It's not Imagine.
No.
I will find it.
It'll come to you. It'll come, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
No problem.
But an interesting project and something else that, I knew you were involved with this, but didn't really understand what it was. And it sounds certainly fascinating. If I continue on this line of questioning, but bring it maybe to more of a Korean context, you were also involved with something in Korea known as the Disabled People's Culture and Art Festival. Can you tell us about that one?
Well, when someone approached me or an organization approached me for a cause like this one, it's hard to say no.
Of course.
And it happened in a great timing. I was here in Korea, and they asked me to perform for disabled children and people.
Right.
So I said yes.
Right.
Because I read about the organization and realized that it was very, very important.
And when you're doing that sort of performance, do you approach it in a different way, knowing that your audience is maybe made up more so of people that wouldn't normally be at perhaps one of your regular concerts? Do you approach it differently, or do you just go into it as your normal self?
I think the best is to stay who you are and offer something, a part of yourself.
Right.
And I can say I stay the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why would you really want to differ? I suppose, as you said, be yourself, be true to yourself, be true to your own music. We maybe touched on it when you mentioned your time with collaborating in the Make Some Noise project. You're known for your collaborations. In fact, you've collaborated several times with different artists.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about that next if we could. Can you tell us, number one, how do you get involved with these collaborations? And number two, what do you see as maybe the, I don't want to say benefit because I don't want to make it a good and bad, but what do you see as the sort of result that comes out of a collaboration that maybe wouldn't be there if you were just doing music on your own?
Well, I think the best aspect is to go in new fields of music. I think the outcome is always, the most important is the artistic outcome. And learning a lot in working with several people. I remember I recorded the title Eternity back to, I think, 2000 or 99 with the Red Army Choir from Russia. And I remember the recording session. And the way they were singing, the way they were approaching music, it brought me something new as an artist.
Right.
And I hope I brought them something new as well. So that's, for me, the most important, basically, is the artistic result.
Right. Yeah.
And also what you learn in meeting people. In England, for example, I wanted to learn more about songwriting because I'm in instrumental field.
Yeah.
And when I've met Sir George Martin in London, I produced an album at his studio at Air Studios London.
Fantastic.
And I remember the approach, the way we were structuring a song to be there in probably the best place in the world where they created so many hits as a pop artist.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, it's always, first is the artistic aspect. And of course, if it becomes a number one hit,
well,
we're happy.
Of course, yeah. I mean, who
and we
wouldn't
wish
be?
for it,
Right.
you know. But the main aspect is really to create something new that, not in the comfort zone as well.
Right.
It's good to be in a zone that you're not used to be.
Well, that really leads me nicely to another question. You mentioned comfort zone. Performing with various types of artists from different genres. You yourself have performed in a few different genres, sort of starting maybe in classical in your younger age. There was a jazz period there, if I'm not mistaken. And these days it seems to be new age is the label that's applied. Do you think that's a fair label? Are you a new age pianist? I
respect any labels as far as people can understand a little bit more about, because it's hard to categorize music. As you know, music is such a large,
I agree,
it covers
completely.
so much.
Yeah.
So for some people, I'm maybe a new age artist, and I say, well, if you find it new age, I mean, it's better new age than old age. But I believe that, yes, I mean, I'm not against the categorization. And I mean, people have their own vision. But yes, I explored a lot, starting with classical music when I was 5 years old. And then grew up in the jazz environment. And then starting writing music, producing. And when we had this technology boom in the 80s, you know, I remember buying all the computers and trying to do the programming. And then it helped me a lot to change also my sound and my style and evolve also with technology, because I really believe in technology. I'm part of the musicians who really enjoy you know, the music and the technology together.
Well, again, another good reason for you to come to Korea so often. Of course, Korea, a leader in many areas of technology. As I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, one of the things I love about having musicians on the program is that we get a chance to hear some of the music, and we're going to do that right now. We're going to take our first break here on today's edition of TBS eFM's Inside Out, and we're going to go to a song. This is Flying by our guest today, Mr. Steve Barakat.